Hello everyone, welcome to episode 23 of Reconstructing Cave Story. In this episode we're going to be roughing in the health HUD. Basically the problem that we have is we need a visual indicator in order to keep track of the player health. So what we're going to do is we're just going to rough in the health HUD. We're just going to place the sprites that we have. I'm using this textbox.bitmap file, and it's got the health bar and it's got the health indicator bar, which is huge because of it's used for bosses and such. And then we've got the numbers down here. So those are what we're basically going to be putting in. We're not going to do a very fancy number system yet. It's just going to be rough, really rough. And then we'll work on probably the number system in the next episode, like being able to draw or create a sprite just by giving a number, and it'll be a lot easier on us for the millions of times we're going to be using numbers. Anyway, the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce a half tile constant, and it's going to be in units of game. And the reason I'm doing this is because all of these sprites are pretty much 16 by 16, or if you're using the old sprites, 8 by 8. I should say original because old sounds bad, but the original sprites are 8 by 8 for these. So we're going to have to use a lot of half tiles in order to calculate where things are in the sprite sheet and how big they are. So I'm just going to introduce a new constant in our units class to do that. And then one final thing is I introduced a bug way back in the beginning, and I thought like I was making a simplification by using 0 for black, but apparently I made a bad assumption, and that's okay. Like, I'd usually try not to make assumptions. In this case, I thought it would be easier, but it's come back to bite me. So we're going to fix that in this episode, and you guys will just to a good thing to keep in mind is when you make assumptions, remember that you made those assumptions so that when you go back, it's a lot easier to find and test those assumptions rather than the things you know. So that's what we're going to do in this episode. So let's start in our units class and create this k half tile constant. So I'll open units.h, and down below our tile to game somewhere, I'm going to create a const units game k half tile, and this will just be equal to tile to game 1 divided by 2. And this way we can just have a k half tile. And we're actually doing this kind of calculation elsewhere. Oh, hold on, I don't need to scope this in. In fact, I can't scope this in. We're actually using this elsewhere in the code though. So I'm gonna look for where we're using it and see where we can use our k half tile instead so that we're running a consistent code base. So I'm gonna find all references. And let's start in firstcavebat.cc. So we have here a plus units divided by 2. So I'm going to change this to units k half tile. So I'll just so it looks like we know what we're doing. Find all references again. Again, we have this 5 times k half tile. And actually, I'm going to make a constant for this. So this is just a little bit of cleanup that we can do. So this is going to be flight amplitude. So I'll just create a const units of game flight k flight amplitude. And that's going to be equal to, I think, 5 times k half tile. Yeah. So 5 times k half tile, and units, of course, to scope it in so we can kind of reduce some of this, some of our magic numbers, put them into constants. So this is going to be k flight amplitude. Let's see if there's any more. I don't see any more in here. I know in .h we're using 1 divided by 2, so I'll clean that up here too. So this will be k half tile. So that shortens that line up pretty nicely. I think there was one more in player.h where we were getting the center. Yeah, so I'll change this to k half tile. So I'm going to build and run just to make sure that I didn't break anything by doing this. Yeah, it looks good still. Still taking damage, everything's good. So now let's start putting these sprites in, and I'll fix that bug I mentioned in the beginning of the episode later, once you can kind of get an idea of what it looks like. But let's start in our player class. Open our player.h and player.cc. So we'll start in player.h, and we're going to need 3 sprites, and I'm going to put these in scoped pointers because we're only going to have one of them. And I'm probably going to move this later, but when I'm roughing it in, I like to put it in the easiest place I can and then sort of see where things fall in. See where things fall into place. So I'll create a boost scoped pointer, and this is just going to have a sprite, and it's going to be our health bar sprite. And this is just going to be the background for our health bar, and it's going to always be there, never changing kind of thing, and we'll draw other sprites on top of it. So let's initialize this, and then I'll show you which part of the sprite I'm talking about. So down in initialize sprites, before we initialize any of our other sprites, I'll initialize this health bar sprite. So I'll just do a dot reset, and it'll be new sprite, giving it a graphics object, and the path is going to be content slash text box.bitmap. And then it needs a source X and a source Y. So let's look at the sprite sheet. So the one I'm implementing is down here, this little heart symbol, followed by all the way over to here where there's a little break. And so this is at X equals 0 in tile width and Y equals 2.5 tiles down. So X equals 0, so we'll just do 0, and Y is 2.5 tiles. So we'll just do 2.5 times, or we could do 5 times k half tile. And we'll make a constant for this in a minute. So the width is 4 tiles and the height is a half a tile. So we can do units. Oh, and this should be in pixels really. Units, game to pixel. And this should be units, tile to pixel, because we're doing an even number of tiles. So, and then half a tile. So this will be game to pixel, and it'll be k half tile. Of course, I need to scope in half tiles, giving it units. All right, so we need one more parenthesis, and that's happy. So now let's actually draw it, and where are we drawing it? It's about 1 tile, well, I'm pretty sure it's exactly 1 tile in and 2 tiles down. So I'll draw it there, and you can kind of see that it will look a lot like the game itself. So down here in draw, no, actually I'm going to make a new method because it needs to be drawn on top of everything. So I'll call it draw HUD. So we'll call it void draw HUD, and this will be const, and it'll need to take in graphics. And actually, let's declare it up here. Oops. Let's declare it up here below draw. Keep our draw methods together, and I will define it in here, player CC, just below draw. That'll be player. No, I don't need to copy anything. So we'll just do our health bar sprite, draw, doing it graphics, and an X and a Y. So this will be units, tile to game, and it's going to be 1 unit in X and 2 units in Y. And that should be all that we need to rough that in. So I'll build and run. And we can't see it because we are not actually calling draw HUD yet. So let's go over to our game.cc and make sure that we call that. Down here in draw, it needs to be drawn on top of everything, including the map. So I'll just call player draw HUD, giving it graphics. So let's try this again, build, run. Okay, so now here's where we can see the bug. You can see that there aren't any white pixels being drawn. So that's the next step. Let's fix that next. So to fix this, let's go into our graphics.cc file, and we're going to look at load image, where we are loading in our sprite sheet. So here, if black is transparent, we need to actually do a better definition of our black color because this is the lazy way and the wrong way to do it. So yeah, sorry about that, guys. Map RGB. So this is the right way to get a color. So this is STL map RGB, and it takes in a pixel format which we get from our sprite sheet or our surface. So I'll just go ahead and show you what it looks like. You just pass it in the format from our surface. So this is our surface, right? And then you can get format from that. And then you can pass it in 3 values for R, G, and B. So I'll pass in 0 for R, G, and B. And I'll store this in a const uint 32 for black color. And just use that instead of our lazy 0. Yeah, so don't do that. And you will avoid bugs. So I'm building and running just to show you guys the difference that this made. And so I bring this over, and now you can see we have white pixels again, which is awesome. Great. Well, that's what it should have been like from the beginning. But enough about that. Let's move on to putting in our health bar and the number 3 to represent how much health we currently have. So let's build the health fill next, and that's just going to be this red bar, using some of that to put over this white bordered stuff in our health bar. So I'm going to call this health fill sprite, and it's going to be another scoped pointer. So this will be fill sprite. And in player.cc, let's make sure that we initialize it. And I'll add all these constants at the end before the episode is over. I promise I will do that. So change that to health fill sprite. And so the health fill sprite, like I showed you, is going to be down at 1.5 tiles. 1.5 tiles down. So that's 3 times k half tile. We could also do it units times, but whatever, this works. And the width is going to be a little bit unusual. I'm going to do the normal way, and then you'll see how it's not quite right, and then we'll fix it. So this is 2.5 tiles, or game to tile 5 times units k half tile. And the height is still just going to be a half tile. So now let's draw it, where we're drawing our health bar sprite. So this is going to be drawn on top of it, so we'll draw it after. So health fill sprite dot draw, or dash draw, arrow draw, and it's going to be at 2.5 tiles. So 5 times k half tile. and it's going to be at 2 tiles down. So that stays the same. So let's build and run. And this doesn't even look wrong in the way I thought it would. So let me see what I did. Probably converted something wrong. So the width is wrong. So let's look at the health fill width. So this is the width. And I'm doing game to tile, which is totally wrong. I should be doing game to pixel. And so yeah, let's build and run this again and see how this looks. Okay, this looks way better, but still not perfect. Our red fill is going out a little bit far. And so this actually needs to be pulled back in about 2 game units. So to do that, I'm going to look at the health sprite and or fill sprite and then take this in 2 game units. So minus 2 game units. So let's do units game to pixel 2 or 2.0. So let's see how this works. Build succeeded. And yeah, I'm much happier with this because it's just inside of the fillable border and it looks much better. Okay, so the next thing we need is the 3. And just to prove to you exactly how rough this is, I'm going to name the actual sprite 3. And this should be like a clear sign that we're going to change this later. I'm not leaving it like this, I promise. So I'm going to initialize this for now, but this is just roughing in, seeing where things need to go, and then making them more dynamic as we go. So we're going to reset it. Its X position, or source X, is going to be at 3 times K half tile. Converted to pixels, of course. So units, game to pixel. Oops, shouldn't have gone that far. And its Y is at 3.5 units, so that's 7 times half tile. Its width is going to be 1/2 tile, and its height is going to be 1/2 tile. So I'll just get rid of this. And I just realized that I could clean this last bit up by combining these instead of calling 2 different functions. So I'm going to do that now. So that's better. One less function call is always easier to read. So yeah, that's what our 3 sprite, that's that white 3 sprite. I'll show you again right here, this 3 sprite. And we'll probably do numbers in the next episode, just making them more robust. So we'll do 3, arrow draw, graphics, and we're going to draw it for now at 2 by 2 for tile. So tile to game to units, tile to game to. It's nice not having to remember what units to convert to what, like just given a float and a double, like it asks for a game instead of a double or a float. It's really nice. I'm glad I did that. I'm glad I made that change. All right, so here we go. Here's the 3 being displayed, and it looks great. So I'm gonna go show you one more thing I wanna do in this episode, and that is get our health bar to flash with quote, like it does in the game. So that's one more thing I'm gonna do. And like I promised, make some constants. I'm not going to make any constants for this 3 because that's going to change for sure. And it's going to be changing pretty drastically too. So let's start by creating our flash. The easiest way to do this is to just copy and paste this, but since we're using it in 2 places and I want them to be in sync with each other, I'm just going to create another method to keep them in line with each other. So I'm going to call this void nope bool sprite is visible, and it's just going to return if it's visible or not. And I'll implement it down here below our, at the very end actually, of the file down here. And it's pretty much going to return the opposite. Let's go up to draw. Search for draw. It's going to return the opposite of this, so I'm just going to return turn, not that. And then we can just draw if it's visible or not, determine from that. So draw, where's draw? Up at the top. So if sprite is visible, and if sprite is visible. So build, run, test. Make sure everything is flashing all right. Woo! Looks good. Okay, the last thing I promised was constants, so let's do that really quickly too. So there's two sets of constants I'm going to make, which are the draw position and the source position and width and height. So I'll start with the draw position. I'm going to store these all as, I'm not going to do 3 like I said, but I'm going to store all of these draw positions as game units. So I'll copy and paste this up here so I can see what I'm working with. I'll do HUD constants. Try to go through this pretty quickly. So I'm going to store const units type game k health bar x equals that, and then y. Okay, so that's that. I'm going to do the same thing for health fill, but I'll copy and paste to try to make things faster. And this is going to be, that's going to be the same, so I'll just change this. Okay, so that's taken care of. Now we can use those down here in draw. So this will be k health bar x. That's done. Next, I'll make the source variables. I'm going to copy and paste this up again so I can just make this a little faster. So we'll start with const units of game. Okay, health bar source x equals 0. Now for y, this will be that. Now for width and height, I'll leave these in tile, or this one in tile. And this one in game. that takes care of health bar. Let's do health fill. So health fill, I'm only going to do the source X, source Y, and height. I'm not going to do the width because the width is going to be changing over time depending on how much health you have. So yeah. Source X is going to be 0. Source Y is that. Not doing width, but I'm going to do height. Ooh, this should be height, not width. So this is just going to be half tile. Okay, so now we need to actually use these down in our initialized sprites. So these are all going to be units game to pixel, so I'll just, and it's going to be K health bar source X. And this is going to be source Y. And this is going to be source width. And this is going to be source height. Same kind of thing for this. Game to pixel, source Y. And game to pixel, source height. So I'm just going to build and run, make sure I didn't break anything by moving out these constants. It built successfully, but I still broke something. So let's see what I broke. I changed my source width. This should be tile to pixel K source width. Let's see what I did. Okay, I see. This should not be tile to pixel. This should just be 4. Okay, that looks better. So guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for sticking through. Even if you refactored it yourself and you aren't seeing this anyway. Happy developing. Thanks a lot. Bye.